Before we begin, if you're watching this late at night while trying to fall asleep to the sound of human suffering disguised as historical storytelling, you're in the right place. If you enjoy feeling mildly disgusted by the habits of long-dead aristocrats, go ahead and like this video, subscribe for more tragic hygiene tales, and tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? And what historical era do you want us to ruin next? Now, let's travel back in time, to a world where soap was suspicious, water was deadly, and perfume was your best and only hope. You live in the year 1532. You smell like 1532. And friend, that is not a compliment. You wake up in a bed that hasn't been washed since your grandmother was young, mostly because she died in it. The sheets are a tapestry of old sweat, wine stains, and the faint musk of something no one talks about but everyone smells. Next to you lies your nightshirt. You haven't changed it in days. Not because you're lazy, but because you don't believe it's necessary. Cleanliness in your world is a theory, a philosophy, not a practice. There's no soap on your washstand, because soap is something the lower classes make from lard and ash and use with water, which you've been taught to avoid. Why? Because doctors, or what passes for them, insist that water opens the pores, and what flows in through those pores? Disease, cold air, miasmas, sins. Yes, sins. People believe bathing might literally make you more spiritually vulnerable. So instead of washing, you do what everyone does. You mask the problem. You reach for your linen cloth, your dry bath. You rub it over your face, your neck, your arms. You call it cleaning. You know, it just moves the smell around. But it's tradition. You might also powder yourself with crushed herbs, chalk, or scented rice flour. If you're lucky, you own a tiny vial of rose water, which you dab carefully behind your ears and between the folds of your collar. You don't bathe. You anoint. Your hair is long, because barbers are rare and your trust is even rarer. It shines, but only because it's coated in natural oils and last week's meat drippings from a tavern brawl. You might comb it or just wrap it in a scented cloth and hope no one notices. The rich wear perfumes. Not lightly, heavily, suffocatingly. People say a well-dressed noble can be smelled before they're seen. The ladies dab musk on their wrists and lavender between their toes. Men, fearing lice and bad luck, tuck sweet herbs under their hats and inside their doublets. Mint, rosemary, a sprig of thyme, not for food, for defense, against rot, against judgment, against the smell of themselves. You open your window. Big mistake. The street below is a festival of human discharge. Urine splashed from chamber pots. Rotting vegetables. Manure. The corpse of a cat that's been lying there for 3 days because it's not anyone's job. You see your neighbor across the way. He's peeing out of his window. Again. You nod politely. He nods back. Because that's just life. There are public baths. Or rather were. Most of them closed a few decades ago after they became synonymous with disease and moral decay. They were communal. And as everyone knows, where people gather naked, people gossip, people sin, people get sick. So now, the idea of bathing has become taboo, even scandalous. To say you took a full bath might be met with disbelief, or worse concern. Why? Are you ill? Are you French? Did the devil touch you? Still, once or twice a year, you do wash. Not in a tub. That's for royalty. You get a bucket. If you're lucky, someone warms the water. You pour it over yourself in short bursts, gasping like a trout on a dock. You scrub with a linen rag. You use soap if you can find it. The soap stings because it's not gentle. It's made from animal fat and whatever lye the soap maker had lying around. You leave the bath raw, but reborn. You vow to do it again soon. You don't. If you're a woman, hygiene gets even more creative. You might use scented pouches sewn into your undergarments. You definitely don't shave. You might pluck, but razors are crude, and doctors warn that removing hair might unbalance your humors. And nothing is worse than unbalanced humors. Toilets? Don't be ridiculous. You have a chamber pot. It lives under your bed. You empty it into the street in the morning with a casual flick of the wrist and a muttered, "Garde lo," the medieval version of "watch your head." The smell? Always there. But you don't notice anymore. No one does. You've built a life around not noticing. And yet, you call yourself clean. Because in your world, clean isn't about soap or water. It's about ritual, cloth, powder, perfume. You wear your scent like a shield. Because behind it is a person, soft, vulnerable, sweating in silence. And that is the Renaissance. You didn't grow up rich, but you weren't exactly poor either. You existed in that glorious in-between, poor enough to suffer, rich enough to feel slightly superior to those who suffered more, which means you didn't clean yourself better. You just talked about it differently. Let's talk about your clothes. You're wearing 3 layers today. Your undershirt is linen, not because it's comfortable, though it is, but because it absorbs you. Your sweat, your oil, your secrets. And because washing your body is suspect, the linen becomes your front line of defense. You don't wash it often, maybe once every few weeks. But when you do, you boil it. Yes, boil, not to clean it, to kill what has grown inside it. You don't know what bacteria are, but you know what itching is. And you've named several of your lice. The outer layer, rarely cleaned. You spot clean it with spit, or a damp cloth, or the corner of something that smells better than you. Mostly, you just hang it out the window and hope the sun judges you mercifully. You're very familiar with the term airing out. It's what you say when someone asks how you stay fresh. You point to your windowsill. You gesture at the breeze. You pretend not to hear the words, "You smell like pickled sadness." Because in the Renaissance, reputation is survival. Now let's talk deodorant. Not that anyone calls it that. They call it warding powder, or virtue dust, or the good stuff. It comes in little pouches. You tie them around your waist, tuck them into your sleeves, and sometimes shove one straight into your hat. There's rosemary in there, lavender, maybe some dried citrus peel if you're lucky. You don't apply it to your body. That would be weird. You just exist near it. One time, you heard a rumor about someone in Florence who actually rubbed garlic on their feet because they believed it drew out bad humors. You tried it. Twice. Your friends said your shoes smelled like a cursed kitchen, but your skin peeled off less that week, so you kept doing it. You are nothing if not committed. Every now and then, you visit the barber surgeon. Not for your hair. For maintenance. He offers cleansing services. You sit in his chair. He wipes your face with a cloth soaked in vinegar. He scrapes behind your ears with a tool you can't describe without wincing. He pulls out a metal toothpick. Not for your teeth. For your ears. You leave feeling like a lightly pickled fruit. And somehow, that's the best you've felt all month. The wealthy talk about the four humors. They believe your body is full of blood, phlegm, black bile, yellow bile. And when those are out of balance, that's when the filth seeps out. Through your breath, your sweat, your thoughts. So cleansing yourself isn't about removing dirt. It's about rebalancing your essence. Which is why you once paid a traveling apothecary to make you drink 3 ounces of goose liver boiled in almond milk. You threw up for 2 days. He said it meant it was working. Let's not forget your mouth. You don't brush your teeth because you don't have a brush. You chew on sticks, licorice root, charcoal twigs. You sometimes rub your gums with crushed mint and vinegar. Your breath is described as musky, which you've decided is a compliment. Your teeth? They're mostly there. Mostly. One has gone gray. You've named it Judas. And your feet? A whole different war zone. Your shoes are leather, barely flexible, frequently wet. You never wear socks. Because socks are expensive and pointless. So you stuff moss in there. Or straw. Sometimes old fabric you tore from a curtain during a particularly dramatic argument with your landlord. The result? Your feet are permanently damp, wrinkled, red, rebellious. You avoid looking at them, and no one asks you to take your shoes off unless they're very brave or very drunk. Sometimes, you wonder if there's a better way. You hear whispers of distant lands where people bathe in steam, soak in salt, use oils to purify and heal. You scoff. Out loud. Then you lie awake at night wondering what that must feel like. To step into warm water. To wash your hair. To come out clean. But here? Clean is not something you are. It's something you perform. A dance of linen and lavender. A ritual of avoidance. And so you go through your day, sweating into linen, blaming bad smells on your neighbors, dousing your hat with rose water and hoping no one notices your armpits. At the market, someone walks past you. Their scent is unfamiliar. Not terrible, just honest. You wrinkle your nose, then realize it smells like you. You both say nothing, just nod. Because in this world, that nod is solidarity. You didn't expect to fall in love today. You expected to barter for onions, maybe avoid eye contact with a fishmonger who always winks too slowly. But not this. Not the soft collision of a shoulder against yours. Not the gloved hand that caught your elbow. Not the scent. Yes, the scent. Because that's how courtship begins in your time. Not with flowers. Not with words. But with the question your nose asks first. Can I live with this smell forever? They smelled like violets and sweat. You weren't sure if the sweat was theirs or the crowd's. But the violets were real. Crushed petals, maybe. Maybe perfume, if they were lucky enough to afford it. Your nose tried to figure it out before your brain could form a sentence. They smiled. You panicked. You had bathed 2 weeks ago. You remember because your cousin dropped a boiled beet in the bucket, and you didn't notice until your entire left leg smelled like vinegar for days. You meant to wash your underthings yesterday, but it rained, and your drying rope snapped. You're currently wearing week-old breeches and a tunic that was once blue, but has faded into what you call regret gray. Still, you hold your head high, because this is Renaissance romance. And love, true love, does not hinge on hygiene, at least not officially. Unofficially, it is everything. They glance at your shoes. You curse internally. You wore your mossy pair, the one with the left sole slightly rotted from the time you stepped in goose dung, and said, "This is fine, but it's too late now." You nod politely. They ask if you're buying carrots. You say yes, even though you came for soaproot and pride. They laugh. You think it might be genuine. Let's talk about dating in the Renaissance. Not the romantic kind. The survival kind. You want to know a person's social rank? Don't ask. Just sniff. A noble might wear ambergris. Yes, that ambergris. The waxy stuff from a whale's digestive tract that somehow became fashionable. They dab it behind their ears, on their wrists, even on their gloves. It smells like old flowers and money. The wealthy reek of effort. The poor, effortlessly reek. You fall somewhere in between. You remember your aunt once told you, marry someone who smells like rosemary and makes you laugh. So you started carrying rosemary in your sleeve. You still don't laugh much, but today you did. You and your new companion wander through the market. You discuss onions. You discuss weather. You avoid discussing the suspicious patch on your shoulder that might be mildew, might be art. They don't mention it. You take it as a sign. Eventually, you reach the apothecary stall. A small wooden cart. Smells like mustard seed, crushed juniper, and goat. You ask for rosewater. They ask if it's for you or someone else. You hesitate. They hand you a small vial. Glass, wrapped in linen, priced at 2 chickens and a secret. You offer 3 eggs and a lie about having noble cousins. He accepts. Your companion watches, impressed. They ask if you've ever tried a steam bath. You laugh. Of course not. Steam is dangerous. Steam is mystical. Steam is luxurious. It's said to draw out toxins, and also demons, depending on which church you go to. You once met a man who claimed steam cured his limp. You also saw him limp away immediately afterward. You return home alone. But with the vial, you dab a drop on your wrist. It smells like memories you wish you had. You wonder if you'll see them again. You hope so. If only because you remembered to clean behind your ears today. Let's shift focus to romantic hygiene. You've heard stories. Some say couples used to sleep fully clothed, not for modesty, for protection, from lice, from fleas, from each other. You sleep mostly naked, but only because your only nightshirt now doubles as a curtain. You once loved someone who used a different herb every week. Sage on Sundays, mint on market days, cloves when she was angry. She never told you how she chose them. She left a satchel under your bed when she moved on. It still smells like memory and regret. Courtship gifts aren't flowers. They're comb sets. Wooden, carved, sometimes with initials. You gave someone a flea comb once. They said it was the most personal thing they'd ever received. You said, "It's used." They smiled wider. You still don't know what that meant. Your companion, the one from the market, returns. A week later, you're wearing the same tunic. You pretend you meant to. They don't seem to mind. They're wearing a new ribbon soaked in what smells like cinnamon and sweat. You approve. They suggest a walk. You agree. Halfway through, it rains. You panic, because wet linen smells like old dogs and shame. They laugh and say, "You smell like the river." You thank them, then wonder if that's good. They hold your hand anyway. And you decide to believe it is, because in your world, love isn't about looking perfect. It's about not recoiling when someone leans close, and for one brief moment, under the drizzle, holding a damp hand that smells like spice and sincerity, you forget that your shirt has never once touched soap, and you feel clean. You've decided to clean your clothes. A bold decision, an uncommon one, and possibly a dangerous one, because in the Renaissance, laundry is not a chore. It's a trial, a spiritual ordeal, a social signal, and an open invitation for your neighbors to gossip about your stains. But still, you've reached that point. Your tunic is stiff. Your undergarments hum like a choir of fermented despair, and your once white chemise is now a noble shade of bone disappointment. You begin by preparing, not the garments, your soul. Because laundry is a ritual, and rituals require patience, ingredients, and the willingness to handle other people's filth like it's a form of penance. You gather your tools: ashlie, rainwater, a wooden stick, a stone, and prayer. Yes, prayer. Because the last time you did this, your fingers turned red and the soap burned like your conscience. You head to the communal wash area. It's down by the stream. Not because the water is clean. It isn't. It's where animals bathe, children play, and occasionally someone drowns a rat for sport. But it moves, and movement makes things feel cleaner than they are. You aren't alone. The washerwomen are already there. Strong-armed and sharp-tongued, they beat clothes against flat stones with the fury of scorned saints. Their soap is home-brewed, made of lard, ash, and vindictive energy. They don't wear gloves. They wear attitude. You nod to them, respectfully. They grunt back. One of them eyes your bundle of clothes and says, "That tunic's seen better centuries." You smile. Because laundry is also performance art. You pick a stone. Flat, warm, slightly wet, like your self-esteem. You lay out your garments one by one, like laying sinners before a judge. You pour the lye water carefully. It smells like failure and regret. You take your stick and begin to stir. Let's pause here. Let's talk about soap. Because Renaissance soap is not what you're imagining. It's not floral. It's not creamy. It's not made by a brand named after birds or feelings. It's fat. Literally. Animal fat. Boiled with lye until it hardens into beige bricks that smell faintly of tragedy. You scrape some off. Rub it into the fabric. It doesn't lather. It never lathers. Instead, it grits. It grinds. And then it burns. You've heard tales of women bleaching clothes with urine. You think about trying it. Then remember last time and how long it took for the smell to leave your hands. You return to the lye. Scrubbing hurts. Partly because your hands are raw. Partly because the shirt is stiff enough to fight back. But mostly because you feel judged. By your garments. By the women next to you. By God. One of the washerwomen offers unsolicited advice. You know, if you wore less, you'd wash less. You nod politely. Then realize she's right. You consider nudity, but quickly remember the town's laws. And your own humility. You rinse your tunic in the cold stream. The water carries away some of the grime. And probably your last remaining chance at smooth skin. You hang it on a line strung between two trees. It drips. It sulks. It smells marginally better. You count that as a win. The underclothes are next. You hesitate. Because these are intimate. Not because they reveal too much, but because they reveal everything. The wear. The stains, The story of every meal, every fall, every bad decision you've made since the last full moon. You scrub them with more force. You try not to make eye contact with anyone. Nearby, someone is boiling linens. You smell the pot. Ash. Soap. A hint of desperation. Boiling is reserved for serious dirt. Or serious infection. You tell yourself you're not that filthy. But you also ask if you can borrow the pot when they're done. Just in case. By midday, your hands are shaking. Your arms ache. You've beaten cloth like it insulted your ancestors. You've rinsed until your knuckles wrinkled. You've officially washed your clothes. But now, you must dry them. Which, in theory, means air and sun. In practice, it means a tree limb, a fence post, or a borrowed rope from someone who smells only slightly worse than you. You choose the rope. Because the fence has bird droppings and the tree hosts an angry family of crows, your clothes drip quietly. You sit nearby. The sun is warm. Your fingers are red. You smell faintly of burnt soap and effort. You look at your wet tunic and realize something horrifying. You'll have to wear it again tomorrow. It won't be dry, but you can't walk around shirtless. That's how people end up in morality plays. You sigh. You lie back in the grass. You stare at the sky and wonder if anyone in the world has ever truly been clean. Someone walks past, sniffs, and says, "Someone smells almost decent today." You smile. You're pretty sure it's sarcasm, but you'll take it. Laundry is done. Until next month. Or until your neighbor's dog uses your tunic as a nest again. Whichever comes first. Because, in the Renaissance, cleanliness isn't a state of being. It's a brief illusion, bought with blood, ash, and bruised knuckles. You wake up to the sound of dripping. Not water. Dripping. As in something viscous. Something inevitable. You know, before you sit up, the chamber pot overflowed. Again, it's not entirely your fault. You meant to empty it yesterday, but the weather turned, and the street was full of militia. And frankly, you were tired. So you did what most do. You slid it under the bed and pretended it didn't exist. This morning, however, the illusion has shattered. Your socks are soaked in proof. You sigh, because this is how your day begins. Let's talk about bodily functions. Not poetically, not metaphorically, but practically. Where does it all go? In your world, it goes in a pot. Your chamber pot is ceramic, cracked on one side. It belonged to your aunt, then your cousin, then briefly to a man you owed money to. It's more traveled than you are. You keep it under the bed, or in a corner, or on bad days, right next to you. You use it for everything. Liquid. Solid. Questions you don't want to ask. You do your business. You cover it with a cloth. Sometimes herbs. Sometimes just denial. And you wait until morning. Morning is when the ritual begins. You take the pot. You walk briskly through the hallway, praying no one else is doing the same. Because chamber pot traffic is a silent game of don't spill, don't trip, don't look down. You reach the window. Sometimes it's a back door. Sometimes a ledge. And then you throw, but not before shouting, loudly, clearly. One phrase, garde l'eau. It means, watch out for the water, but everyone knows it means, pee incoming. You yell. You pour. You sigh. Sometimes you hear screaming, sometimes cursing. Once applause. You close the shutter and pretend none of it happened. But not everyone has a pot. Some people squat in alleys, some in fields. Some pay a penny for a spot in a communal privy that smells like generational trauma, and those are the lucky ones. Because public toilets, if you can call them, that are worse. Imagine a wooden bench with holes and a pit, a deep, horrifying pit. No privacy, no dignity, no guarantee the bench won't collapse. You sit, you pray. You avoid eye contact. And what about wiping? Ah, yes. The eternal question. The answer depends on your station, your location, and your ability to improvise. Rich folks use cloth. Soft, reusable, washed by someone else. Poor folks? Straw. Hay. Wool scraps. Shells, if you live by the sea. You once used a corn cob. You never talk about it. You remember a merchant who imported rags specifically for wiping, sold them by the dozen, said they were from Florence, probably were just old tunics from dead soldiers, but they felt luxurious. You saved up for a set once, used them twice, then burned them. Some things can't be washed away. There are rumors of Romans who used sponges on sticks, cleaned them in vinegar, shared them. You don't know if that's worse or better. You just hope no one ever revives the idea. Once, during a hot summer week, the privy in your neighbor's home collapsed. Right through the floorboards. Took the chair, half the wall, and their dignity. The smell lasted 3 moons. Their reputation? Still recovering. Sanitation is not a science in your time. It's an experiment. One you fail daily. Cities stink. Towns fester. And rivers? Don't drink from them, unless you enjoy diarrhea as a lifestyle. But you adapt. Your nose becomes numb. Your standards shift. You consider a home clean if you can see the floor and the rats run politely. You sometimes dream of a world where toilets exist. Real ones. Porcelain thrones that whisk your shame away with a magical whirl. Where privacy is standard. Where smells don't linger. Where no one ever has to say, "Garde à l'eau." But in this life, you have your pot, and your window, and a very fast wrist. Today, you clean the pot. A rare event. You fill a bucket with water from the well. It's muddy. You add ashes. They say ash removes odor. They lie. You scrub. The crack gets wider. You pretend not to notice. You rinse. You set it in the sun. Let it bake. You don't own incense, but you wave rosemary near it and hope the saints understand. By midday, it's dry. You return it to its place, like a loyal, foul companion, and you make yourself a promise. Tomorrow, you'll empty it on time. You won't forget. You won't delay. You won't. Oh, you already need it again. Because in the Renaissance, cleanliness isn't next to godliness. It's next to your bed, and smells slightly of failure. Your scalp itches. Again. It itched yesterday. It itched last week. It's been itching for so long, you've given it a nickname. Sir Itch-a-Lot. You dig your fingers through your hair. It feels like straw soaked in secrets. But you don't panic, because this is normal. You, like everyone around you, are alive, which means your scalp is home to other lives. Welcome to the world of lice. They're not your fault. Everyone has them. The rich, The poor, the clergy, the merchants, even the bishop, especially the bishop. You've come to accept them like bad weather. Unpleasant, predictable, and entirely out of your control. You find one on your collar. Flick it. It lands on your sleeve. You name it, Gregory, and blow it into the wind. Hair care is not luxurious. It's survival. You haven't washed your hair in weeks. Not because you're lazy, because washing it is risky. Let's talk about shampoo. It doesn't exist. Not really. If you want to cleanse your hair, you mix vinegar, rainwater, crushed rosemary, and your hopes. It doesn't foam. It doesn't smell nice. But it stings enough to make you think it's working. You once used lye soap. Once. You lost 3 chunks of scalp and half your dignity. Combs are your best weapon. Wooden, wide-toothed, strong enough to scrape out the pests without snapping in protest. You heat the comb before using it, not for comfort, for murder. The heat stuns the lice. You imagine them screaming. It brings you peace. You comb in the morning, and again at night. Each stroke pulls a handful of unwashed days from your head. Hair breaks off, falls like burnt threads into your lap. You sweep them into a pouch. Later, you'll stuff it into your shoes for extra warmth. Yes, really. Waste not. You remember once, as a child, your aunt shaved her head, declared she was reborn, said lice were sent by the devil to test her. She looked like a peeled onion for weeks. People stared, then envied her, because she walked through summer without scratching once. There are remedies. Most of them involve smearing your head with animal fat, covering it in ash, sleeping with onions tied to your scalp, or praying hard enough that the lice decide you're not worth it. You've tried 3 of those. The onions made your pillow smell like soup. Hair was once a symbol of purity. Now, it's a battlefield. You see a woman down the lane braiding hers. She uses threads soaked in lavender. You nod in respect. That's wealth. You tie yours back with a rag that once served as a dishcloth. It smells faintly of garlic, but holds. Barbers are dangerous. They cut hair, yes, but they also extract teeth, bloodlet, and whisper unsolicited opinions about your imbalance. You sat in one's chair once. He poured warm vinegar over your head, massaged it in with cracked fingernails. You left smelling like pickled lettuce. The lice applauded. Your eyebrows itch. Don't scratch. Too obvious. People will know. You pretend to adjust your hat. You pinch the brow subtly. Flick. Success. Small victories define your days. Wigs exist, but not for you. They're powdered, perfumed, and expensive. Made of horsehair or worse, other people's hair. They cover baldness. They hide shame. They don't solve the lice problem. They just relocate it. Once, you caught sight of yourself in still water. Hair sticking up. Grease glistening. Something small crawling near your temple. You laughed. Because if you don't, you'll cry. You heard a traveler say in the East they use oils. Coconut. Almond. Something fragrant. He said their hair shines like stars. You stared at him, then at your reflection in the wine barrel. You decided stars are overrated. You own a hat, a miracle, wide-brimmed, leather, smells like rain and old goat. You wear it daily, partly for sun, partly for fashion, mostly to keep falling lice from returning. You call it your circle of protection. When the lice get bad enough, you burn things. Your pillowcase, your old scarf, your dignity. Once, you set your tunic on fire on purpose. People said you'd lost your mind. You said, no, you just wanted to sleep one night without scratching yourself into madness. Hair is identity. Yours says, you've seen hardship. You've slept on straw. You once spilled beer on your head and called it a cleanse. It's tangled. It's tough. It's home to strangers. And still, it's yours. You brush it back. Tie it with twine. Take a deep breath. Ignore the tickle near your ear and go outside. Because, in the Renaissance, you're never truly alone, especially on your own scalp. You wake up with your mouth tasting like boiled leather and bad decisions. Again, you run your tongue along your teeth. At least, you assume they're still teeth. It's hard to tell where enamel ends and plaque civilization begins. One tooth wobbles. You name it courage, because it hasn't given up yet. You sit up and wonder how long it's been since you cleaned your mouth. The answer is a trick, because you never really clean your mouth. You survive it. Let's be honest. Your teeth? They're bad. Everyone's are. You're in the Renaissance. There's no toothpaste, no floss, no mouthwash, just hope. And sometimes sage leaves. You chew them in the morning. Not because you want to, because someone told you once it helps. That sage keeps the devil and decay away. You're not sure if that's the same thing, but your mouth now tastes like dirt and stubbornness. Progress. You grab a toothpick. It's not a fancy one. It's a splinter from your doorframe, sharpened with a nail. You consider it a tool of honor. You wedge it between your molars. There's resistance. There's something. You don't want to look. You flick it out and prayed it wasn't alive. Let's talk about dental tools. Most of them are improvised. Twigs, strips of cloth, rough brushes made from horsehair tied to sticks. Once, you used the edge of a spoon. You bled. You called it a success. The wealthy chew cloves. They carry little pouches filled with dried herbs to mask the rot. You once stole a clove from a merchant's table, bit down on it like treasure. It numbed your gums and your guilt. You were grateful. Toothaches are a curse. Literal, sometimes. People believe worms cause the pain. Tiny toothworms that crawl inside and feast. You laugh at the idea, then stop, because if it's not worms, then it's just you, and somehow that's worse. You visit a barber surgeon when it gets unbearable. He's cheerful, always is, especially when you mention pain. He lays you on a plank, pours ale on your lips, not to numb, to distract. Then he shows you his tooth key, a metal tool that looks like it belongs in a dungeon. Because it does. He says, "This'll only take a moment." He lies. It takes many moments. It takes yelling, bleeding, regret. He yanks. Your vision blurs. Your soul tries to escape. And then you hold the tooth in your hand. It's black, cracked, smells like betrayal. You keep it in a pouch for luck. It doesn't help. Let's discuss breath. Yours smells like fermented cabbage and night terror. Again, this is normal. You rinse with wine if you can, or vinegar, or just water if you're desperate. Sometimes you chew mint if you find it. Sometimes you just cover your mouth with your hand and hope no one notices. They do. You heard of a monk once who brushed his teeth with charcoal and honey. You tried it. You stained your tongue black and chipped a molar. Never again. Your gums bleed often. They swell. They throb. You once tried stuffing dried thyme between them to reduce the pain. It worked for an hour. Then the swelling came back with vengeance. You cried in the pantry. Your neighbor thought you were praying. You let them believe that. You fear soft bread. It gets stuck. Hard bread breaks things. You fear that too. Eating is a gamble. Each bite could be the one that ends your smile forever. You chew slow. You savor. You fear. Let's not even talk about kissing. You've done it. Twice. Once behind a barn. Once in a storm. Both times, you were afraid your teeth might fall out mid-embrace. They didn't. But something else did. A sliver of garlic from earlier. The other person never spoke to you again. Mouths aren't for beauty in your world. They're for function. Eating. Cursing. Surviving. If you still have most of your teeth by 30, you're considered blessed. If you have all of them, people whisper. They think you made a deal with someone dark. You don't correct them. You've considered getting all your teeth pulled. It's not uncommon. People do it to avoid years of pain. Then they use wooden replacements. Or nothing at all. You met an old woman once who gummed her food with pride. Said chewing was for the young. She smiled often. Her breath could melt stone. Your cousin once filed his front teeth into points. Said it made him look fierce. It did. Until one snapped during a brawl. He talks with a whistle now. There's a man in town who carves false teeth from bone. They don't fit. They don't work. But they look decent from a distance. You paid him a chicken once for a single molar. Wore it on a string around your neck. Not practical. But you liked the idea of pretending. Today, your mouth doesn't hurt too badly. A rare thing. You smile at a child. They look horrified. You remember you haven't rinsed today. You dip your hand into a rain barrel. Scoop. Swish. Spit. Something lands on your boot. You don't investigate. You feel slightly cleaner. In the Renaissance, a clean mouth is a miracle. A full mouth is suspicious. And a toothache? That's just Tuesday. You wake up wearing the same clothes you slept in. Because, of course, you do. You didn't change into pajamas. You don't own pajamas. No one does. That's a future invention from a world where sleep and comfort are friends. You live in a world where sleep is just a break from being awake. And clothes? Clothes are armor. Your shirt is stiff. It smells like smoke, sweat, someone else's dog. It clings to you like regret. The collar is frayed. The sleeves have patches. You call them intentional design. Your neighbor calls them holes. You're both correct. Let's talk about laundry. Again? Yes. Because Renaissance cleanliness isn't about doing things once. It's about doing them over and over and crying a little each time. Your undergarments were washed 3 weeks ago. Since then, they've been rained on, slept in, sat in, possibly used as a napkin. They've absorbed so many layers of life that they now qualify as historical artifacts. The outer garments are worse. Wool, rough, scratchy, not scratchy like a cat's tongue, scratchy like medieval punishment. You wear wool in summer. You wear wool in winter. You wear it until it becomes part of your skin, then patch it, then wear it more. Once you tried linen. Light, breezy. You felt beautiful for exactly 7 hours. Then it tore. Then it stained. Then someone stole it while it dried on the fence. You found it a week later on, a man you didn't know. He waved. You didn't wave back. Let's talk about lice again. Because they're back. Not in your hair. In your shirt seams. In your pants. They love warmth. They love dark. They love you. You sit by the fire. Feel a tickle on your belly. You scratch. You pretend it's nothing. You tell yourself maybe it's just the fabric. You know it's not. You turn your shirt inside out and inspect it. Tiny black dots. Movement. You sigh. You shake it over the fire. A small cloud of life dislodges. Some burn. Some escape. You count this as cleaning. You used to try washing everything once a month. Then you ran out of time. Then soap. Then hope. Now you spot clean with vinegar and spite. It works. Mostly. You own 2 tunics. One for every day. One for special. They are exactly the same. Except one has slightly fewer holes. You save it for holy days and funerals. Lately, they feel like the same thing. Your hose, the Renaissance version of pants, are sagging again. The ties are loose. You retie them with a strip of rope. Last week, you used a dead rat's tail. You've since upgraded. Progress. Your shoes are made of leather. Old, cracked, barely recognizable as shoes. You've patched the soles with wood scraps. You've stuffed hay inside for warmth. You once saw someone using actual socks. They were royalty, or insane, or both. Washing clothes isn't the only challenge. Drying them is worse. You hang them on bushes, over fences, near fire. They smell like whatever they touched. You once dried your shirt on the edge of a communal privy. It smelled better before. Perfume? That's for the rich. They dab it on to cover sin and sweat. You once sniffed a noble's sleeve and passed out. You've never smelled roses that aggressive. You use crushed herbs. Rosemary. Thyme. Sometimes just dirt that smells like something green. Your cloak is heavy. It holds rain like a grudge. When you take it off, it folds like a wet blanket of judgment. It smells of mold, of travel, of forgotten tasks. You love it. Let's talk about layers. Because you wear many. Not for style. For survival. Your chemise sticks to your back. Your tunic rides up when you bend. Your cloak catches wind like a sail. You are never dry. You are never fresh. You are wrapped in your own history. And that history stinks. Once, a traveling merchant sold you a cleansing stone. Said it absorbs odor. You wore it for a week. All it did was give you a rash. You still wear it. Because it's better than nothing. You've sewn your garments more than you've eaten meat. You know how to stitch by firelight. You use bone needles. Thread from old seams. You've repaired the same rip 5 times. It still rips. It always will. Clothing is a lie. It says, this person is respectable, but your shirt is hiding. Fleas. Shame. The fact that you haven't bathed in 9 days, and everyone knows it. But they pretend, because their clothes lie too. Today, someone offers you a new hat. It's misshapen. It smells like pig. You accept it. You wear it like a crown. Because, in the Renaissance, clean clothes aren't clean. They're just less dirty than before. And that, friend, is the highest praise you can hope for. You hear it before you see it. Voices, splashing, laughter, someone singing badly. The scent of steam and sweat and soapweed drifts on the breeze. And something else. Something hopeful? You haven't bathed in weeks, which means today you're going to the public bathhouse. You walk the dirt road with your bundle. It's not much. A rag for drying, a crust of bread, your dignity in a very small jar. You pass others going the same direction. A woman with a crooked back, 2 boys with matching scabs, a priest humming to himself, all unwashed, all excited. Because for a few hours, you'll all pretend that cleanliness is achievable. The bathhouse is a wooden building slouching like it's embarrassed to exist. Steam leaks from every crack. The door creaks when you enter. You pay your coin, more than you can afford, less than you need. You strip behind a curtain. By curtain, of course, we mean someone else's old blanket hanging on a nail. Naked, you carry your body like a crime. You don't look at others. They don't look at you. It's a silent agreement of mutual shame. You step into the main chamber. Steam curls around your ankles. There's a massive tub in the center, carved from stone, filled with water as dark as secrets. People are already in it. You join them. The water is hot, shocking, wonderful, suspicious. You know it's reused. You know it's been through many bodies. But right now, you don't care. Your skin sighs. Your muscles unclench. You almost smile. Then someone next to you sneezes. You close your mouth tightly. Let's talk about bathhouses. They're not just for bathing. They're social theaters. Places of gossip, business, and occasional romance. They're loud, crowded, wet in all the wrong ways. You once overheard a confession while rinsing your armpits. You kept it to yourself, mostly. Soap is a luxury, but today, someone's passing around a bar made of animal fat, ash, lavender, if you're lucky. You rub it between your hands. It barely lathers, but the smell is better than what you walked in with. You scrub, hard. Your skin turns red. You wonder if pain equals progress. It doesn't, but you believe anyway. A boy with missing teeth offers to scrub your back. You decline. He shrugs and moves on. You watch as he climbs into another man's lap and starts singing. You're not sure if that's cleaning or something else. You don't ask. There's a side room where people oil themselves. Not for health, for shine. Olive oil, if you're rich. Lard, if you're not. You tried it once. Felt like a greased eel. Swore never again. Still, today, the scent is tempting. You peek in, then remember the rash. You walk away. You dunk your head underwater. It's a ritual. It feels like rebirth. Or drowning. You rise, gasping. Your nose burns. Something brushes your leg. You tell yourself it was a leaf. You know it wasn't. Someone farts. Everyone pretends not to hear. This is part of the dance. A woman starts humming a hymn. Someone joins in. Soon, the room sounds holy. It's not, but the acoustics are nice. Let's talk about the water. It's heated by fire, stirred with long poles, filtered by evaporation. It's not clean, but it's warm. And in your world, warm water is worth more than gold. You don't ask where it comes from, or how often it's changed. You already know the answer. There's a man in the corner picking lice from his beard. He places them on the edge of the tub like trophies. You scoot away. He grins. You clean as best you can. You scrub your limbs, your feet, behind your ears. The water turns cloudy around you. You pretend not to notice. You are, for a moment, human again. Not filth, not sweat, just skin. And possibility. Drying off is chaos. There are no towels, only cloths. And not enough. You pat yourself with the rag you brought. It smells like mildew. You pretend it's fine. Someone offers to share theirs. You decline. You've seen where they sat. Outside. You dress slowly. Your clean skin touches your dirty clothes. It's a betrayal. But you have no choice. Freshness vanishes like fog. Still, as you walk home, you feel different. Lighter. You touch your face. It's smoother. Your hands smell like herbs and ash. Children don't stare. Dogs don't follow. You feel almost elegant. The feeling lasts 2 hours. Then the wind picks up. Dust clings to your cheeks. Your feet sweat. Your shirt itches. You are once again you, but now you remember the warmth, the water, the illusion of being clean. And for one brief afternoon, that was enough. In the Renaissance, bathing doesn't make you clean. It makes you believe you're clean. And sometimes, that's all you need. You wake up with pressure in your gut. The kind that doesn't wait. The kind that says, get up, now, or face consequences. So you get up. You shuffle past the others, sleeping on the floor. Avoid stepping on a chicken, or your cousin's face. You grab your cloak, not for warmth, but for privacy, because where you're going, there are no doors. Let's talk about using the toilet in the Renaissance. Except there is no toilet. There's a hole, a trench, a box, an alley behind the tavern. There's whatever's available, which, today, is the communal latrine at the edge of town. You walk with your head down. The road is muddy. You pass a man doing his business behind a cart. He nods at you. You nod back. This is a sacred time. There are no questions. Only respect. The latrine smells before you see it. A pungent mix of waste, straw, regret, something sweet that makes it worse. You breathe through your mouth. You immediately regret it. You breathe through your sleeve. It helps. Barely. It's a wooden shed. 3 walls. No roof. Inside, a long wooden plank with holes cut in it. Below, a pit. Deep. Dark. Full. You don't want to know how full. You just hope it's not overflowing today. There's no paper. Of course, there's no paper. You reach into the corner where someone's left a basket of options. Moss. Cloth scraps. A page from a sermon. A corn husk. Used. You pick the moss. You pray it's fresh. You sit. Let's pause here. Let's talk about toilets through time. Because even before modern plumbing, people had ideas. In castles, nobles used garderobe stone chutes that dropped waste into moats or pits. Smelled like ambition and failure. In cities, people used chamber pots, then threw contents into the street with a yell, "Gardeloo," which meant, watch out. You once got hit anyway. You didn't go outside for 3 days. Back to you. You finish your business. It's not graceful. It's not poetic, but it's done. You reach for the moss. You wipe. You flinch. You try not to look. You toss it into the pit. You stand up. You do not look down. There's a bucket of gray water for rinsing. You splash some on your hands. It smells like soap from last year. You rub. You shake dry. You leave. On the way back, you pass a dog sniffing something terrible. It wags its tail at you. You nod solemnly. You are both survivors. Let's talk about chamber pots. You own one. It's cracked. Ceramic. Painted with a flower that looks sad. You keep it under the bed. At night, when the cold bites and the wind howls, you use it. Then cover it with a board. The next morning, you carry it to the alley. You do not make eye contact with anyone. You pour. You rinse. You return. You once lived in a house with no pot. You used a bucket. Then a hole. Then a nearby bush. Then a neighbor's bush. You are no longer on speaking terms. The rich do it differently. They have velvet-padded chamber pots. Servants empty them. Sometimes they have indoor benches. Sometimes they use perfume afterward. You once saw a noble use rose water to clean themselves. You cried a little. You heard rumors of toilet paper in the East. Silk cloth. Smooth. Reusable. You wondered what that was like. Then remembered your moss. You held it tighter. Let's not forget the bidet. It doesn't exist yet. But the idea of using water to clean yourself? Revolutionary. You tried once, at a river. It was cold. It was awkward. A fish swam too close. You never tried again. Your friend built a privy out of old crates, raised off the ground. Ventilation holes. A view of the hills. He called it the throne. He decorated it with a painted crescent moon. Someone stole it last week. Now he goes behind the bakery. Progress is fragile. Back in town, someone dumps waste out of a window. It hits the gutter, misses your boot by a finger's width. You say nothing. You've learned not to tempt fate. There's a night soil man in your village. He collects waste from pits and sells it as fertilizer. He smells like doom, but he's wealthier than you. You once asked him what the worst part of the job was. He said, "The splash." You haven't spoken since. You remember a time, long ago, when someone tried to build indoor plumbing. Pipes. Water flow. A system. It collapsed after a week. Flooded the pantry. Ruined 6 loaves of bread. They never tried again. You finish your day as you began. Uncertain. Unclean. But relieved. Your stomach gurgles. You hope it was a farewell, not a warning. In the Renaissance, answering nature's call isn't just biology. It's strategy. It's survival. It's a gamble. And somehow, you keep winning. Barely. You wake up to the sound of coughing. Not your own. Someone in the next room. Wet, barking, the kind of cough that makes you wonder if their lungs are trying to evacuate. You roll over. The blanket sticks to your skin. Your sweat has turned it into something between linen and regret. Your throat itches. You sniff. You smell wrong. A mix of mold, onion, a strange sweetness that might be fever. You sit up and immediately regret it. Your head spins. Your mouth tastes like boiled cabbage and betrayal. You are not well. But sickness isn't new. Sickness is routine. Like bad weather. Like hunger. Like the rats you try to pretend don't live under the floorboards. You walk to the wash basin. The water is still. A dead fly floats on the surface. You flick it out. It sinks into the straw on the floor. You splash your face. The water is cold. You hoped it would revive you. Instead, it just makes you shiver harder. Let's talk about illness in the Renaissance. People think disease is caused by bad air, bad smells, angry gods, sin, excess emotions, or sometimes tomatoes. You once ate a tomato and were blamed for a neighbor's miscarriage. You haven't eaten one since. Your cousin believes in humors. Blood, phlegm, yellow bile, black bile. Balance is everything. He once bled himself with a fishbone to release heat. He passed out next to a bucket. You helped him stand. He thanked you with a piece of cold turnip. You accepted it, because kindness is rare. The physician in town wears robes and smells like nutmeg. He has no idea what he's doing. He holds your wrist, counts something, and then tells you your liver is angry. You don't know how to make it happy. He recommends leeches. You pretend to consider it. You will not be returning. Your neighbor swears by garlic and wine. She's old. Really old. She says she rubs her feet with garlic paste every night and hasn't had a cold in 12 years. You tried once. It burned. You slipped on the oil and cracked your elbow on the hearth. Now your elbow pops when it rains. Thanks, garlic. You've been taught that washing too often can make you weaker. Open your pores too much, they say, and the bad air gets in. So you bathe rarely. You sweat often. Your skin is a battlefield. Your armpits itch. You scratch. Then stop. You remember what happened last time. Boils. You still have the scars. They look like constellations. You call them the itchy dipper. Let's talk about perfume. You don't own any. But once, someone gave you a cloth scented with lavender. You kept it for months. Rubbed it behind your ears before market day. People said you looked almost alive. You still think of that cloth sometimes. You buried it after it started to smell like feet. Your hands are cracked. Your nails are black. You've washed them twice this week. That's more than most. But still, dirt clings. Like guilt, you cough into your sleeve. Thick. Sticky. You don't look at the color. You don't need that kind of truth today. You remember when the plague came through. The real one. People dropped in the street. You burned sage every night. You held a coin soaked in vinegar under your tongue. You wore a dried toad around your neck. It didn't help, but it gave you something to believe in. And sometimes, belief is cleaner than soap. Let's not forget urine diagnosis. You once brought a jar of your own to the apothecary. He swirled it, held it to the light, sniffed it, declared you melancholic, gave you powdered snail shell. You sprinkled it on your porridge. You wept. The porridge wept. Nothing improved. A priest says confession can cure illness. You tried, told him about the time you stole honey and blamed the dog. He forgave you, then got a rash. You haven't confessed since. Your feet hurt. Always. Your boots are worn through. You tried stuffing them with hay. Now you just have warm, moldy pain. You limp to the market anyway. Because sick or not, you have to eat. Someone sneezes near the bread. You take the one furthest away. You imagine the sneeze traveling like a ghost. You eat the bread anyway. You always do. That night your fever spikes. You lie on your cot, staring at the rafters. You imagine the mites crawling over the beams. You wonder if they feel sick too. You dream of clean places, running water, white sheets, a bath that doesn't come with splinters. Then you wake up, sweating into your straw mattress, and remember where you are. In the Renaissance, sickness isn't something you treat. It's something you endure. You hope it passes. You pray it doesn't linger. And when it finally leaves, it takes a piece of you with it. You sit up. You cough. You spit into a bucket. It echoes. You whisper, "Still here." And sometimes, that's enough. You're not feeling better. Yesterday's headache has become a constant throb behind your left eye. You haven't eaten. Your back aches. Your sweat smells metallic. You're out of vinegar, out of bread, out of excuses. So you decide to do something drastic. You go to the healer. You don't trust him, but you also don't trust your body anymore. It's been leaking strange fluids, making strange noises, developing strange smells. You're fairly certain your armpits are plotting against you. Time for intervention. The healer lives on the edge of the village. A small hut. Overgrown garden. A pig tied to the doorpost, snoring softly. You knock. The door opens itself. That's not comforting. Inside, it smells like boiled bark, rotting apples, something very dead pretending to be alive. You cough. He appears behind you without a sound. A man made of rags, bones, and possibly dust. He says, "Sit." You do, because you're afraid not to. He looks at you, doesn't touch, just peers, then grunts, then grabs a leech. No explanation, just leech. Let's talk about bleeding. In Renaissance logic, bad humors must leave the body. Blood is often the problem. So they remove it. Through. Cuts. Cups. Leeches. Hope. It's called balancing the system. You call it draining your last will to live. The leech is cold. Wet. Ambitious. It attaches to your forearm like it owns the place. You flinch. The healer nods in satisfaction. You begin to sweat. He tells you that's good. It's not. He offers a drink. Brown liquid in a cracked mug. You sip. It tastes like tree bark and shame. He smiles. You cry a little. He doesn't notice. Next, he burns some herbs in a dish. The smoke is thick. Your eyes water. Your cough returns. He circles you 3 times, muttering. You catch the word demons. You try not to feel insulted. Then comes the powder. Ground horn. Dried bat lung. Crushed rose petals for scent. He sprinkles it in your hair. It sticks to your scalp like regret. You now smell like a cursed bakery. Let's discuss cures from the period. They range from drinking mercury, rubbing manure on boils, swallowing gemstones, not joking, wearing dead toads in a pouch. You've tried one of those. 2, if you count the toad. Once, someone told you that urine was a cleanser, so you washed your feet in it. They itched for a week, but smelled oddly neutral. You've heard of trepanation. That's where they drill a hole in your skull to let the bad out. You hope today won't include that. You cross your fingers behind your back. It doesn't help. The healer brings out a jar of maggots. You freeze. He says they eat the rot. You say your rot is personal. He laughs. You do not. He asks if you've had impure thoughts. You think about bread. He frowns. You lie and say no. He seems disappointed. He ties a string around your wrist, says it's blessed. It smells like mildew. You thank him anyway. Sometimes, belief is the best disinfectant. He tells you to sleep with a warm onion between your knees. You ask why. He says, balance. You don't ask again. The session ends when he sprinkles salt over your head and says you've been lightened. You feel heavier, but also strangely clean. Not physically, but mentally. Like you've been scrubbed with absurdity. You pay him with 2 coins and half a carrot. He bows. You leave. Back at home, you try to follow his instructions. You lie down. You place the onion. You whisper a small prayer to your liver. You hope it listens. Your sweat still stinks. Your headache still lingers. Your cough still growls. But your skin tingles from the smoke. Your arm is bruised from the leech. And your heart feels quieter. Like it laughed just once and remembered what that felt like. In the Renaissance, healing isn't about results. It's about ritual, the gesture, the performance, the story that maybe this time something will work. And sometimes, that story is the only medicine you get. You try to eat an apple. You really do. But the first bite sends a shockwave of pain through your jaw that almost knocks you off your stool. You drop the apple, clutch your face, curse softly. Your tooth is revolting. Literally. It feels like it's trying to escape your mouth by sheer rage alone. You've known this pain before. It's deep, sharp, pulsing, a throbbing heartbeat in bone. You try to ignore it. You fail. You remember your cousin, who once let his tooth rot until it blackened, then fell out mid-sentence. He kept talking. The tooth sat on the table like a betrayal. Let's talk about oral hygiene in the Renaissance. There isn't much. People clean their teeth with twigs, rags, salt, ash, prayers. Some chew fennel seeds to freshen their breath. Others chew parsley. Most just chew and hope for the best. You have a twig. It's frayed at one end. You bite it, rub it along your gums, and pretend it helps. It doesn't. Your gums bleed. You spit into a bowl and try not to look. The water turns pink. It looks artistic. Like pain, but decorated. Tooth powder exists, yes, made from crushed eggshells, charcoal, ground bones, mint, if you're lucky. You once used a powder made from oyster shells. It felt like scrubbing with sand and shame. You used it 3 times, then gave up. You go to the mirror, such as it is a warped piece of polished metal. You peer at your mouth. There it is, a molar, red and swollen at the root. The gums around it look like angry jelly. You poke it. You regret that decision. Let's talk about dentists. They don't really exist. There are barber surgeons. They cut hair, and limbs, and teeth. A one-stop shop for trauma. They don't use anesthetic. They use strong arms and stronger drinks. And pliers. Always the pliers. You once saw a man have a tooth pulled in the town square. The barber placed a knee on his chest. The tooth came out with a sound you've never forgotten. It was like a cork, but wetter. The man passed out. The crowd applauded. You felt something die inside. Your mouth tastes like copper. You try clove oil. It's rare, expensive, but the merchant owed you a favor. You dab it on the gum. It burns, then numbs, then burns again. You lie on your cot, tasting fire and rot. hoping one cancels out the other. Let's pause to appreciate how important teeth are. You need them to eat, to smile, to scream, to keep your face from collapsing like a tent with no poles. In the Renaissance, losing your teeth is a slow disintegration of your dignity and your diet. Without teeth, you're limited to porridge, soup, mushy turnips, regret. You used to love bread crusts. Now you eye them with fear. Even cheese can feel like betrayal. Some people make wooden teeth. You've seen one. It looked like a miniature fence. The wearer smiled like a haunted fence post. You pretended not to notice. You once heard of a noble who had gold dental caps. They shone in the candlelight. He died of infection within a month, but he looked magnificent. There are stories of toothworms. You've heard whispers. They eat from the inside. Some say you can draw them out by placing honey near the tooth. Others recommend burning rosemary and inhaling the smoke while chanting. You've tried neither, but you've stared at your pillow, wondering if you'd see something crawl out. Your breath smells. You know it. Others know it. You chew mint when you can. Mostly, you avoid talking too close. You lean back during conversation. You cover your mouth when laughing. You've learned to smile with your eyes. And shame. There's a traveling healer in town this week. He carries a velvet pouch filled with tiny metal hooks, tiny metal lies, big scary confidence. You watch him remove a tooth from a woman without flinching. She screams. He bows. He looks like he enjoys the sound. You walk away. You're not ready. Not yet. Instead, you boil salt water. You rinse. You spit. You cry. You lie down. You dream of apples. You wake up with blood on your pillow. You wipe it away. Your neighbor tells you about a charm. Tie a thread around your thumb. Chant a rhyme. Bite into a clove of garlic at midnight. You try it. Your thumb goes numb. Your mouth burns. The tooth still hurts. But now, you have something to blame. You make your peace. If it falls out, so be it. If it doesn't, it will eventually. You learn to live around the pain. You eat soft things. You avoid extremes of temperature, of texture, of hope. In the Renaissance, dental care is not a right. It's a gamble, and most people lose. Some slowly, some suddenly, but always with a crunch. You spit again. Pink. You whisper. Stay in. Just one more day. The tooth does not respond, but it listens. You think. You wake up tangled in your own hair. It's sticky. It smells like candle smoke and onions. And no one even cooked onions yesterday. You sit up slowly. Your scalp itches. Not in one spot, everywhere. You scratch with one hand, then both. You find something that feels suspiciously like a breadcrumb. You don't ask how it got there. You flick it across the room and pray it wasn't moving. Let's talk about your hair. It's long. Or it was. Now it's half long, half snapped, half lost in the war against lice, fleas, and despair. There was a time when people said you had a fine head of hair. Now they mostly say, oh, you haven't washed it in 3 weeks. Because washing your hair is a process, and by process, we mean ordeal. There is no shampoo. There is soap hand. It smells like boiled goat and makes your scalp feel like it's being punished. There is water cold, or worse, lukewarm and gray. There is time you don't have it, and there is hope you lost that days ago. You used to try and keep it nice. You combed it every few days. You oiled it with olive scraps. You even once braided it. Then the lice came, and everything changed. Lice are part of life. You don't talk about them, but everyone has them. Except that one monk who shaved his head and rubs his scalp with vinegar daily. You're starting to think he might be the smartest person you know. You tried vinegar once. It helped. Then you spilled it. Your room smelled like salad for a week. The dog wouldn't stop licking your pillow. You find your comb, wooden, cracked, missing 3 teeth more than you are, for now. You run it through your hair. It snags. You pull. A small tuft comes out. You stare at it in your palm. It looks like a dead mouse. You place it gently on the windowsill. Maybe a bird can use it. Maybe someone will make a tiny wig. Let's talk hairstyles. The rich get creative. Tall styles. Braided crowns. Wigs powdered with flour or crushed herbs. They employ servants to comb, wash, and untangle. Sometimes the wigs attract mice. You once saw a noble woman smack her own head at a banquet. No one asked questions. The poor cope. Women tie their hair with rags. Men grow it wild or hack it short with a knife. Children's heads are shaved to keep the pests off. It doesn't help, but it feels proactive. You once thought about shaving your own head. You sat with a knife, mirror, and a bowl of grim resolve. Then you heard a neighbor call someone egghead. You changed your mind. Hair means status. Clean hair says you have time and servants. Greasy hair says you're busy surviving. No hair says you've either gone mad or joined a monastery. You're not quite ready for either. You've started wearing a hat more often. It keeps the sun off and hides the mess until the wind blows it off and someone sees the nest on your skull. You pretend not to notice their face. Sometimes you find things in your hair, a small twig, a piece of straw, once a beetle. You name it, Gerald. He stays for 3 days. You miss him when he's gone. You once saw a street performer whose hair was braided with ribbons and beads. It shimmered. It swayed. You watched her with awe. Then she sneezed, and 3 lice fell onto her shoulder. Even beauty carries passengers. Let's not forget beards. If you're a man, yours is uneven, patchy on the left, too strong on the right. You tried trimming it with scissors. They broke. Now you just scowl harder and hope it balances out. If you're a woman, stray hairs sprout where they shouldn't. You pluck them with a fishbone. You whisper apologies to your reflection. It doesn't forgive you. Hair is personal. It's identity, memory, rebellion. But in the Renaissance, it's also just one more thing trying to kill you. You oil it with bacon fat. You cover it at night with a cloth soaked in lavender. You recite old charms. To keep the lice, burn the rice. You don't know what it means, but you say it anyway. Rituals are part of cleanliness, too. You dream of warm water. Soap that smells like flowers, not fear. Hands running gently through your hair. Not pulling, not rushing, just caring. You wake up with your braid stuck to your cheek. You peel it off and sigh. You braid it again. Badly. Crooked. Uneven. But it stays in place. Like you. Somehow. Still tangled. Still itchy. Still here. In the Renaissance, your hair is a map. Of your health. Of your class. Of your suffering. And like all maps, It's not always accurate, but it's yours. And sometimes, that's enough. You've been wearing the same tunic for 10 days. You think time is a blur when every day smells the same. It's brown, or it used to be. Now it's a patchwork of grease, ash, sweat, something suspiciously green near the hem. You haven't asked questions. You won't start now. Let's talk about laundry. You don't do it, or rather you rarely do it, because washing clothes is 1. Time-consuming, 2. Painful, 3. A tiny war with water, soap, and your own fingers. And worst of all, you have to take your clothes off. That means exposure, drafts, shame. You remember the last time you tried. It took 4 hours. Your fingers went numb. The soap got in a cut. You screamed. The neighbor's goat screamed back. You haven't repeated the experience. Soap is expensive. You have a small lump. It lives in a cloth pouch, like a sacred relic, made of lye, fat, and cruelty. When wet, it smells like wet dog and ambition. When dry, it smells like giving up. Washing water is worse. Rainwater is best, but rare. River water is available. It's also filled with fish, mud, someone else's sins. You once pulled out a shirt and found a dead frog in the sleeve. You named it Harold. You still miss him. You try the dry rub technique. A stick, some ashes, a prayer. You beat the tunic like it owes you money. It releases a cloud of dust, misery, and perhaps memories. You cough. Your neighbor coughs from across the alley. You both pretend it's fine. Let's examine your undergarments. You have 2. One is currently being worn. The other is somewhere. You last saw it hanging near the hearth. It may now be part of the floor, or the dog. Either way, it's no longer available. Wearing underclothes is supposed to be hygienic. They absorb sweat and grime. In theory. In practice, they're just an extra layer of suffering, clinging to you like guilt. Itchy. Stiff. Sentient? You suspect they develop opinions. You once knew a merchant who wore linen shirts every day. Clean ones. Freshly washed. Ironed. You thought he was royalty. Turns out he just married well. You tried to copy him once, but your shirt turned gray after one wash. Now it looks like an angry napkin. Let's not forget smell. Your clothes remember everything. Every walk to the market, every meal cooked over fire, every time you slept curled in a damp corner of disappointment. They hold it all. You can't escape it. So you add herbs to your pockets. Bay leaves, lavender, mint if you're lucky. They mask the stench for about 12 minutes. Then, your body wins again. People judge you by your clothes, even when theirs are equally disgusting. There's a strange game of denial. You point out the mud on someone's cloak. They notice the hole under your arm. You comment on their wrinkles. They comment on your odor. Everyone is silently losing. You once tried sewing a patch onto your tunic. The needle snapped. You bled on the cloth. The patch stayed crooked. It looks like a wound. Now it has a story. You tell people it was from a fight with a bear. You were the bear. Your shoes are a disaster. One has a hole in the sole. The other squeaks. You stuffed it with straw. Now it just squelches. But you keep wearing them. Because bare feet mean disease, and splinters, and judgment. There's no wardrobe, no closet, just a nail in the wall, where your one spare shirt hangs. It's dusty. It's hopeful. You look at it sometimes like it might save you, but it won't. Not today. Winter is worse. Wet clothes never dry. You hang them by the fire. They steam. They smell like boiled people. You wear them anyway. Cold is a sharper pain than stink. You once tried to impress someone. You borrowed a clean cloak, brushed your hair, washed your face, wore shoes that didn't talk back. They smiled at you, then sneezed, then gave you lice. Romance is risky. Your tunic is stiff today. The sleeves crack when you move. You wonder if it's becoming armor. Or if you are, you lift your arms. You hear something tear. You pretend it didn't. Everyone does. In the Renaissance, clothing is not fashion. It's survival. Protection from weather, from others, from shame. And like everything else, it eventually fails. You brush off the dust. Straighten the hem. Breathe deeply. Regret that. You whisper. One more day. Your shirt doesn't answer, but it holds together. Barely. Just like you. You haven't bathed in 2 weeks. Your skin feels like parchment. Your scalp itches with ambition, and your underarms are holding a rebellion. You've tried, wiping with a cloth, scraping with a knife, crying, but nothing helps. So today you do the unthinkable. You go to the public bathhouse. It's across town, through mud, past livestock, past judgment. You clutch your coin pouch like it's the last warm thing on earth. It holds your last silver piece. You whisper to it, "This better be worth it." It doesn't answer. The bathhouse smells like wet stone and boiled cabbage. A good sign. At least it doesn't smell like death. Not immediately. You step inside. The air is thick, heavy, wet, like walking into someone else's breath. There's a woman at the desk. She doesn't look up. She just holds out a hand. You place your coin. She rings a bell. A young boy appears. He gestures. You follow, and regret begins. First, the changing room. A wooden bench. Hooks on the wall. A bowl of grayish water. You undress slowly. Each layer peels off like old bark. Cold air hits your skin. Your body protests. Your modesty dies. You place your clothes on a hook and pray no one steals them, or worse, recognizes them. You wrap yourself in a thin linen towel. It covers nothing. You shuffle forward like a guilty ghost. The boy opens a door. Steam hits you. Then the noise. Laughter. Coughing. Splashing. Singing. You step inside. The bathhouse is a community. And by community, we mean a sweaty, shouting microcosm of chaos. Naked bodies everywhere. Some sitting. Some soaking. Some scrubbing parts that should never be scrubbed in public. No one looks ashamed. Except you. You try not to make eye contact. You fail. A man winks at you. You consider turning around, but the boy has vanished. Too late now. You pick a corner. A wooden tub. Water that was once hot. Now just brave. You dip a toe. Regret it. Then slide in like you're surrendering. Let's talk about soap. It's communal. You reach for the lump floating nearby. It's soft, mushy, possibly alive, You lather your arms, your legs, your sorrow. You avoid eye contact with your own knees. They judge you. Across the room, someone is singing a song about sheep. You don't ask. Near you, an old woman scrubs her back with a brush made from horsehair in pain. You nod respectfully. She nods back. You are now spiritually bonded. Steam fogs the windows. Sweat clings to your eyelids. You wonder if this is what cleansing feels like, or if you're just stewing in human soup. A child cannonballs into a tub. You are splashed with historical regret. Let's not forget what else lives in bathhouses. Lice, fleas, disease, secrets. You once heard of someone catching syphilis from a shared bench. You now hover slightly above yours. There's a rumor that priests don't bathe. They say it leads to temptation. You believe them. This place is temptation and mildew wrapped in noise. You try not to look around, but you do, and then immediately try not to. Someone offers you oil. You decline. They insist. You now smell like rosemary and confusion. A man near the furnace begins a philosophical argument about the moon. Someone counters with a theory about the humors. It escalates. Water splashes. Voices rise. You crouch lower, only your eyes above the surface now, like a soap-slicked predator, waiting. You try to enjoy it. You really do. The water is warmer now. Your skin is loosening its crust. You run a cloth along your arms. Grime comes off in ribbons. You try not to cry. You fail slightly. For a moment, you imagine a different life, where baths are private, soap is gentle, towels are dry. You imagine rose petals, warmth, music. No one's screaming about goat taxes in the next tub. The boy returns. He hands you a small bowl. Inside, scented vinegar. You pour it over your head. It burns. It smells like citrus and penance. You feel briefly reborn. Then someone belches behind you. The spell is broken. You rise, slowly, wet, wiser, wobbly. Your towel is missing. You find another. It's smaller. Your dignity has already drowned, so you wrap it around your pride. Back in the changing room, your clothes are damp. From the walls? From ghosts? You don't ask. You dress quickly. Each layer clings to your damp skin like a lie. You feel heavier, and yet cleaner. Maybe. Outside, the sun stings your eyes. Fresh air smells alien. You walk home slowly, still slightly steaming, still slightly unsure, but lighter, by sweat, by scrubbing, by something that might resemble hope. In the Renaissance, bathing is rare, risky, raw, ridiculous, but sometimes, just sometimes worth it, even if only for the smell of rosemary and one less layer of despair. You wake up scratching, your left elbow, then the side of your neck, then your stomach. It doesn't stop. It never stops. Your skin is a battlefield. You're not sure when it started. Maybe after the last market day, when someone bumped into you with a suspiciously red arm. Maybe it was the week you slept in the hayloft and shared the space with 3 cats and a pigeon. Maybe it's just your turn. Either way, you are now in a committed relationship with itching. It begins subtly, a tingling, a tiny burn. Then the urge to scratch builds like a rising tide of regret. You obey, but scratching only brings momentary relief and longer-term horror. You check your forearm. There are tiny bumps. Red. Angry. Forming patterns that look vaguely like a cursed constellation. You whisper, "Please don't be scabies." It doesn't answer, but it spreads. Let's talk about skin conditions in the Renaissance. There are many. No one knows what they are. No one knows where they come from. And everyone has a cure. Your neighbor recommends rubbing garlic on the rash, sleeping with a toad, avoiding onions during a full moon. Your aunt says it's from bad blood. She offers to cut your arm with a blessed knife. You decline, but gently. She's already sharpening it. There are ointments. Homemade, heavily scented, deeply suspicious, made from animal fat, ash, moldy herbs, beeswax, desperation. You try one. It stings. Then it itches more. You try another. It smells like despair and boiled cabbage. You apply it anyway. The rash doesn't fade. It evolves. More bumps. Now blisters. One weeps. You pretend not to notice. You wrap it in cloth, which soaks through. You change it, twice, then give up and tie it with string, like a package of failure. You go to the local healer. She looks at your arm and says, "You're cursed." You ask for clarification. She nods solemnly, probably by touching something with envy in it. You don't know what that means. You nod anyway. She gives you a paste to smear on your tongue and says to bathe in wine. You can't afford wine, so you settle for vinegar and regret. Let's not forget leprosy. Everyone talks about it. No one knows what it really is. Any visible skin condition makes people step back, look sideways, whisper. You wear long sleeves, even when it's hot, even when it hurts, even when the fabric sticks to your sores. You've named 2 of them. You try not to scratch in public, but sometimes you do. And then someone looks, and then someone else moves away slightly. And now you're sitting alone, with your thoughts, your itch, and the sound of judgment. There are other theories. Worms under the skin, bad humors surfacing, sins made visible. You wonder which one is yours. You once lied about bread. You said it was yours. It wasn't. Now your thigh looks like a burnt map. Maybe that's justice. You try to sweat it out. You sit by the fire until your vision swims. You wrap yourself in blankets. You drink hot broth. You sweat. A lot. The rash stays. And now, your bed smells like boiled peasant. Someone suggests you go to the priest. You do. He lifts your sleeve. He does not flinch, but he does make the sign of the cross. Then sprinkles holy water on you like you're a particularly rude demon. You feel cleaner, but still itchy. A friend gives you alum salt. You crush it, rub it into your skin. It burns like betrayal, then numbs, then peels. Your arm looks like dried parchment. Buttless itchy. Progress? Maybe. At night, the itch gets worse. You can't sleep. You toss. You turn. You scratch your ankle with your other foot. You rub your back against the wall. You dream of ants. You wake up with blood under your nails. You whisper, "Stop!" But your skin has its own agenda. You begin to smell different. Not bad, not good. Just medicinal, like herbs that died in vain. People notice. Some compliment you. Others avoid you. You start leaning into the image. You wear a cloak. You mutter to yourself. You are now the itchy mystic. One day, you feel better. The rash recedes. The bumps dry. The blisters close. Your skin flakes like old paper. You dust yourself off. Victory? Not really. But you'll take it. You burn your bedsheet. Just in case. You scrub your nails. You whisper thanks to whatever gods or fungi helped. And you promise to never share a blanket with a stranger again. For 3 days. Then winter comes. And the blanket returns. And so does the itch. In the Renaissance, hygiene is improvisation. No one knows what works. No one knows why. But everyone has a story. And most of those stories end with, "And that's how I got this scar." You look at your skin. Faded red. Some marks still visible. But calmer. Like a storm that left graffiti. You nod. You survived this one. You'll probably itch again. But for now, you are clean. Enough. The first thing you smell when you wake up is you. It's hard to describe. It's not just sweat. It's sweat aged in wool and sealed in sorrow. It's the scent of stress, sleep, and sautéed onions from 3 nights ago. You roll over. Your pillow smells worse. You accept your fate. Your room smells too. It's a combination of damp wood, candle wax, mildew, a mystery. You stopped asking what the mystery was after you found something moving in the corner last month. Let's talk about scent. In the Renaissance, scent is survival. It tells you what's fresh, what's rotting, who's rich, who's sick, who's dead, and most importantly, who hasn't bathed since harvest. You step outside. The air hits your nose like a bucket of personality. There's the manure always present. There's the fish stall never iced. There's the tanner's shop smelling of pee and screams. There's the faint scent of burning you hope it's wood this time. You pass a noblewoman. She smells of roses and privilege. You pass a butcher. He smells of iron and honesty. You pass a child. He smells like something small and wet died in his sleeve. You stop trying to breathe. Your own scent follows you like a loyal dog. Warm, persistent, judgmental. You try rubbing herbs under your arms. They wilt immediately. Perfume exists, but it's for the wealthy. They douse themselves in it. Lavender, citrus, ambergris. One woman smells like cinnamon and absolution. Another smells like clove and generational wealth. You smell like survival. There's a theory that smell spreads illness. So people walk around with pomanders, sachets, dried oranges stuffed with cloves. You once tried one. It exploded in your pocket during a rainstorm. You cried for an hour. Your legs smelled festive for days. Your shoes contribute. You take them off once a week. Maybe. Your toes smell like betrayal. The inside of your shoe is damp. Always. You stopped questioning it. You call it the swamp. Let's not forget breath. Tooth care is optional. You chew parsley, charcoal, mint if you can find it. You once tried scrubbing your teeth with a stick. It splintered. You spent 2 days spitting blood and bark. You now just rinse with wine and hope. People avoid each other's mouths, not just for modesty, but for safety. A kiss might be romantic, or it might smell like salted meat left in the sun. Houses are worse, especially shared ones. You once visited a friend who lived above a butcher. The scent climbed the stairs and clung to your soul. For 3 days, you smelled like regret and rawhide. You're betting? Let's not even go there. It smells like everyone who's ever slept in it, plus a few who died in similar ones. You tried airing it out once. The wind brought it to life. It tried to escape. The church is supposed to smell holy. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it smells like feet. Holy feet. But feet nonetheless. The public latrines? You don't go there unless absolutely necessary. And even then, you tie a cloth around your face. Sometimes, too. Once, you passed out. Woke up with a goat sniffing your boot. Never again. Smell and class are linked. The cleaner you smell, the more respect you get. But here's the irony. Even the clean-smelling people are faking it. They just have better masks, better herbs, better fabrics, better lies. You dream of a world without scent, where air is clean, clothes are fresh, water is warm and smells like nothing. You dream of soap that doesn't hurt, of rooms that don't trap stink, of beds that smell like sleep and not history. Then you wake up. You sneeze. You realize it was a fantasy. The pillow still smells like fear and armpits. You press your face into it anyway. Comfort is relative. One day, someone walks by wearing no scent at all. They smell like wind, like emptiness, like possibility. You follow them for 3 blocks. Then remember, you're supposed to be working. You turn back. But you remember, in the Renaissance, you live by your nose. And often, you wish you didn't. Every scent tells a story. Most are tragedies. Some are comedies. All are pungent. You tie a sprig of rosemary to your belt. You carry a cloth soaked in vinegar. You breathe through your mouth sometimes. It helps. Until you remember your mouth is part of the problem. But still you persist. You walk. You smell. You suffer. You adapt. You find beauty in the scent of bread. You find home in the musk of someone you trust. You find memory in the smoke of a shared fire. You are human, and humans in the Renaissance smell loudly. But so does everything else. So in the end, maybe it's fair. You haven't washed your hair in... Let's just say it's older than this week's bread. It's stiff, greasy, defiant. You tie it back with a piece of string. The string sticks. You pretend that's normal. Let's talk about your scalp. It itches, but not all the time, just when someone's watching. You dig your fingers in and hope for the best. Sometimes you come back with more than you expected. Once it was a louse. You named him Reginald. He brought friends. Hair in the Renaissance is symbol and burden. Long hair means patience. Clean hair means money. Shaved heads mean monks or problems. Yours means you exist, barely. You own a comb. Technically, it's made of wood. Several teeth are missing. The rest are splinters. You try to use it every few days. It pulls. It tangles. It makes you question your life choices. Then you stop halfway through. Your hair is now half matted, half frizzy. Congratulations. You look like an angry bush. Washing your hair? Now that's complicated. Soap stings the scalp. Water is either freezing or boiling. Drying takes forever. And worst of all, you'll be wet in public. With wet hair. Like some kind of sensual idiot. The last time you tried, You heated a pot of water, spilled it on your foot, cried, tried again, ended up half clean and fully annoyed. Your scalp smelled like ash and frustration for a week. You haven't repeated the ritual, but the lice keep coming. You've tried everything. Vinegar? Burned. Salt? Stung. Oil? Worked briefly until your head felt like a salad. You once tried tying garlic in a cloth and wearing it like a hat. The smell made people give you space. It also made your cat avoid you for 3 days. You consider it a win. Let's not forget fashion. The wealthy curl their hair, style it, powder it, adorn it with ribbons. You once tried to imitate a nobleman's part. You accidentally created a lightning bolt across your scalp. It stayed that way for weeks. People asked if it was a religious statement. You said yes. Women have it worse. Hair is a battlefield. They oil it. They braid it. They suffer. And if they're married, it must be covered. Because heaven forbid anyone see a strand of sin. You once glimpsed a woman's braid in the wind. It changed you. You wrote a poem about it. It was terrible, but heartfelt. Let's talk about headwear. Hats are your salvation. They hide dirt, grease, flakes, shame. You have a cap you wear every day. It smells like your dreams. Dark, mushy, slightly fermented. You love it. You also hate it. But it's better than public scalp. Children often have shaved heads. Not because it's cute, but because lice are easier to defeat on open ground. You envy them. Then remember your head's shape is questionable at best. You keep your hair. Barbers exist, but they're terrifying. They cut hair, pull teeth, bleed people. Sometimes all 3 in one visit. The last time you went, he nicked your ear. You still hear phantom whispers at night. Coincidence? You hope so. You once heard of someone boiling their combs. You tried. The comb disintegrated. You mourned for a week, then made another from bone. It works. Mostly. Except when it screams. Probably just in your head. There's always the option of powdering your hair. To smell better. To look cleaner. To hide sins. But powder is expensive. You tried flour once. It clumped. Then rained down when you bowed at church. Someone asked if you had dandruff or guilt. You said both. On feast days, you try harder. You rinse your hair. Comb it. Add a sprig of something fragrant. You feel beautiful. Then the wind ruins everything. You spend the meal chewing your own hair. At night, your hair tangles itself in rebellion. You wake up with knots the size of small animals. You consider naming them, then cutting them, then crying. You settle for covering your head and pretending it doesn't exist. Let's not forget facial hair. Beards mean wisdom or laziness. You have a beard because razors are terrifying. Also, because warm chin. You tried trimming it once. It grew back angrier. Now it's a friend you carry on your face. One who always smells like soup. Hair is memory. It holds smoke, sweat, secrets. Yours remembers every bad decision, every sleepless night, every unsanctioned nap in a barn. You dream of a day when washing hair is easy, when combs glide, water is warm. Shampoo exists. You don't know that word, but it visits your dreams. It smells like lemon. In the Renaissance, hair is personal geography, a map of your life, your choices, your ability or lack thereof to clean yourself. You tie it back again. Ignore the crunch. The pull, the whisper of Reginald the Louse. You walk into the world, unwashed, unbothered, unbowed. Because while your hair may not be clean, at least it's yours. And in this time, that's something. Let's say you've done it. You've survived. You've washed, scrubbed, soaked, itched. You've been to the bathhouse. You've fought lice. You've doused yourself in vinegar. You've begged God, saints, and questionable herbs for mercy. Now what? Are you clean? Well, that depends on your definition. In the Renaissance, cleanliness is more a vibe than a result. There are no microscopes, no germ theory, no antibacterial. Clean is how you feel. Clean is how others smell you. Clean is how much dirt you can remove before something important falls off. You look in a polished piece of metal. Your reflection frowns back at you. Hair? Oily, but tied. Skin? Blotchy, but scab-free. Clothes? Worn, but not walking away on their own. You nod. Close enough. But let's zoom out. What have we learned about staying clean? 1. Bathing is rare because it's a hassle, a danger, a luxury. 2. Soap exists, but it's often homemade, scary, or both. 3. Water isn't safe. So even when it's available, it's approached like a wild animal. 4. Smell is survival. People trust their noses more than any priest. 5. Shame is relative. Some people proudly walk filthy. Others douse themselves in flower water and still feel disgusting. You've heard of people being declared unclean, not just for dirt, but for disease, sin, poverty, witchcraft. To be clean sometimes means you're simply lucky enough not to offend someone's eyes or nose. You've failed that test before. You'll probably fail again. And that's okay. Let's not forget clothes. You've worn the same set for weeks. They've been through rain, smoke, horsehair, one very suspicious stain. You hang them up every night. Pray the rats don't chew through the cuffs. You've washed them in a stream once. They froze before they dried. You wore them anyway, because what else can you do? You've tried ritual cleanliness too. Holy water, prayer, confession. Sometimes you feel purer after. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes washing the soul is easier than scrubbing your feet. And food, you've eaten with dirty hands. You've shared cups. You've dropped bread, brushed it off, and eaten it anyway. You've survived, mostly. So what is cleanliness? Is it a body without smell? A face without blemish? A shirt without stains? Or is it simply the ability to keep going, even when the world is sticky, itchy, and vaguely fungal? You remember a story of a noblewoman who bathed once a year and was considered pristine, of a peasant who soaked in cold water every Sunday and was mocked for being vain, of a monk who believed dirt protected him from sin, of a merchant who sold perfume strong enough to knock out a cow. They all thought they were clean. They all were, in their own way. You touch your face. It's rough, sun-browned, wind-scraped, honest. You smell of smoke, rosemary, and old bread. Your hands are cracked but strong. Your teeth are stubbornly holding on. Your scalp itches slightly, but not enough to scream. This is your version of clean. And it's enough. You once dreamed of being spotless, of silk robes, of marble baths, of linen changed daily. Then you woke up in straw and realized sometimes clean is not about skin. Sometimes it's how you move, how you treat others, how you carry your filth without making it someone else's problem. Cleanliness is a spectrum, and everyone's sliding somewhere on it. In the Renaissance, you don't survive because you're clean. You survive because you adapt. You laugh. You scratch. You share water when you must. You stink together. And somehow, that's comforting. You light a candle. It flickers in the dark. Your room smells like wax, wool, and maybe onions. You smile. It's home. It's clean. Enough. And that, dear viewer and possible sleeper, is the end of this grimy, itchy, steamy little journey through Renaissance hygiene. If you've made it this far, you deserve a bath. A real one. With bubbles. Or at least a cookie. And if you're still awake, let us know in the comments. Where are you watching from? What era would you bravely suffer through next? And, as always, like, subscribe, and tell your lice we said hello. Until next time, stay relatively clean.